everybody, welcome back to Tenza Motorsports. Progress is being made on the wagon. It's been slow and steady the last couple of days. I've got to pull the rear subframes out. I knew I was going to need to do that. I was really not looking forward to it, and I was moving the fuel systems back and forth, and I realized that the filler hose tube on the wagon wouldn't let me drop the fuel tank. This is an M56, so it is the economy version of the M54 engine, which doesn't really change much except for the fuel system. And so whatever it is, I'm not sure if that's how it is for all cars, because I've never had to drop a fuel tank before out of one of these 46s, but the filler hose won't let it come out. So when you try to drop the tank, the filler hose has to come up over the axle, and it's basically almost a solid piece of metal, and so you can't finagle it out of there. And I don't want to cut it because I do have a little bit of gas in there, so the last thing I want to do is start throwing sparks around. We are not going to be reusing this fuel tank. It's going to be pulled out of the car. The M3 shell, whatever we decide to do with that, is going to have probably a fuel cell. We might try to cut the fuel pump out of this just to play around and see what we can do with that fuel pump before we throw it away, but that's for later. That's for this car. This subframe and that subframe both have got to come out, and then I've got to swap them and swap the fuel tanks and swap all that fun stuff. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm not going to be recording this entire process. There's lots of videos on how to remove subframes. One's probably a lot better than I could create, and this lift actually makes it a little bit difficult to do a subframe. I've got this one basically ready to go. There's the 4 main bolts that are holding it in, but as you lower it, you have to kind of keep it level, right and left and up and forward and back. And so on this lift, it's going to be difficult to do because it's a runway. It's more of a storage lift. This project here is going to be a little bit more difficult than usual. In fact, I think it's actually going to be easier on the ground when I go to do the M3. We are going to be pulling this apart. I kind of want to go around and just show what I've been doing. Like I said, I'm not going to be recording this entire process. This is probably going to take me a couple days, and I'll have some time lapse up, but I really just kind of want to show what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So like I said, this fuel tank and everything's got to go. If it wasn't the M56, if it was just the M54, I could probably leave the fuel tank. As far as I can tell, I'd be able to pull the fuel pump out of the M3 and put it over there. I'm sure, I haven't looked into this, but I'm pretty sure that the M3 has a different fuel pump. I mean, the engine's bigger, takes more fuel, so I'm assuming it is. So I would probably be able to move that over, but because this fuel tank is all enclosed, basically it's non-serviceable. We've got to pull it out and just get rid of it. So let's take a quick tour on what's going on with this car before I start to pull it apart even more. All right, so here's the progress under the car. I've got the brakes off. I had to disconnect this control arm here. This, I think it's a camber arm. I had to take that bolt out, and then I was able to move the brake caliper out of the way. Now, those are not going to be the calipers that we leave on this car. We're going to be moving over the M3 ones, but I don't want to disconnect it now because I can actually pinch that line, put on the M3 ones, and then unpinch it, and I should be able to just do a very light bleed instead of draining the whole system. So you got your strut disconnected, your springs are out, and basically the only bolts that are left in this are that guy right there. So you got 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the subframe has come out pretty level front to back. So I want to make sure that I drop this properly, and with it being on the lift, if you drop it straight down, it goes onto the runways. So what I'm probably going to be having to do is drop it onto the runways and then lower the lift and then see if I can't twist it. Here's that fill hose coming from the fuel door, and it goes up and over that axle, and it's basically almost a solid piece except for that little band right there. And I tried to get that to be disconnected, and this is solid right here, and I just couldn't get it. So it's not a big deal. I've got to drop the subframe. I just thought I was going to do the fuel tanks first and then drop the subframe, but I guess I'm reversing that order. So hopefully I can get this dropped without hurting myself. So I will check back in later and give everybody updates again. All right, so here is the rear subframe out of the wagon. It really isn't that difficult to take out. I think you can have this whole thing taken apart and dropping out of the bottom of the car for maybe 20 bolts, and this thing is out of the bottom of the car. The reason you have to drop it level, and I didn't really actually know the reason why until I started to do it, is because these here are studs. These ones are bolts that go from the bottom all the way in. There's actually studs that hang off the bottom of the car, go through there, and then there's nuts. So as it comes down, it's gonna come down straight. If it comes down at an angle, these get hung up. So we got that out. Tonight, I am not gonna be doing the M3. We're gonna be doing that a different day. Same video, so stay tuned. And I'd like to have them both side by side, take a look at them, kind of get a chance to compare and see exactly what's different besides maybe just the inside of the differential. So I'm excited to do that. This came out easier than I thought. I was thinking I was gonna have to somehow get it, you know, twisted on the lift and then drop it, but I was able to come out to the side. So the M3 will be done on the ground. I'll have it right here, just right here in front of this other one. And then when it's ready to go back in, I'll get a friend or two and pick this up, slide it right back in, and then I'll be able to use my scissor lift that I have in the middle of the runways on my lift. The second subframe is coming out of the M3 soon. Stay tuned. We'll see you then. So I had a couple clips recorded and I had some bad audio. So I'll explain what happened real quickly before we get back to the video. I pulled the fuel tank out of the M3 and I wasn't being very careful with the vent hoses. There's one on each side of the fuel tank, and as I dropped the tank, the hoses were still connected up top and the tank came down and ended up breaking the connectors to the top of the fuel tank. I then learned that those are not replaceable parts, and to avoid a potential almost $1,000 new fuel tank plus the time it would take to get the fuel tank here, this is what I did to fix it. All right, so this is uncharted territory for me for sure. In fact, I can't even find any videos on it. So here's the plastic nipple. That's what broke off. Now I've trimmed this down because I tried to expose this piece here. So I have a couple options here. I can put this in there halfway and then put a clamp here, and then I can put this on this side. And what this will allow me to do is it'll give me just a little bit of extra flexibility if I need it. If I don't need that, I can pull this out and then I can remove that blue insert. If I remove that blue insert, it automatically jumps up to the bigger size. I bought a whole bunch of parts because I didn't know what I am not going to use or what I need. So I bought a whole bunch, and then what I don't use, I'll take back. So this one fits this, which is the other side that I broke, the other nipple. And then this bigger one here actually fits this one if that blue piece is out. These are pretty long, so I'll probably have to cut one of the ribs off, and that way it'll cinch all the way up, and then I can hose clamp it to there. I bought a couple different designs. So you can see here the threads on this one are smaller around. If I need to, I can jump up to the bigger one. So the idea, because the back side of this, when you put your hand in there, is flat, what I was thinking about doing to keep this at a similar angle is drilling a hole into here and then threading this on with some epoxy glue, gasket maker, whatever I need to use. I'll have to look that up, exactly what I'm gonna use to fix this problem. This should take care of the fact that these like to break, because now they're brass, and hopefully how I put them on there will be a lot stronger. The biggest thing that I'm seeing here is that the angle that this is gonna come out of, this one almost came out parallel to this surface here because it came out at a bit of an angle. It's kind of broken. It's broken right now, so you can't see that. But if I put this in there, it's gonna come up at a different angle. So that's why I was saying if I need to add, a couple inches of this tubing here to give me that slack to bring the hose back down. And as long as there's, a little bit of clearance up here, it should be okay. So I've been looking at it, and if I take one set of ribs off, maybe two, and then I put this all the way in, it's only gonna be that tall out of the top of this. That's the plan right now. I'm gonna try inserting the smaller one and then jumping up to the bigger one if I need to. The other thing I bought was some of these adapters here. So if I need to take out that entire hole, I basically can. I can put a whole new piece in there, but this would need a lot of room. Obviously they're not tightened up all the way. I would have to screw them all into each other, but that's quite a bit bigger than this inch or so that we're gonna need roughly. So, and then again, I can take a couple of these off. I think I can take off two without causing a big issue as long as I put the clamp right on those ribs. That's the plan. That's what I did. The other side looks the exact same. It's just a little bit smaller. So it's actually this size here, which is the smaller size. The insert, like that blue piece. The black one that's in this one is completely stuck in there, so I can't get that off. So I'm gonna be cutting it here and then basically using this to create whatever size of hose I want. And this is just a 1/4 inch. Let's see here, I'll show it to you. So there's the name of the hose. It is a fuel hose. I don't know if it has to be a fuel hose because we're really just playing with vapors here, but this is what I had lying around the garage and it just happened to be the correct size. So cross your fingers, wish me luck. I'll report back on what I found out as I go along fixing this. All right, everybody, this is what I ended up doing. So we had drilled into there. This fit in there quite nicely. I ran it in and out a couple times, put some threads on it. Because you have this blue piece and a bit of the fuel tank, there was actually quite a bit of thread in there. And I think if you just ran it in there, you'd be okay. But what we did was use gasket maker as basically a thread locker. And so that'll hopefully seal all that off. And then I did add this to it so that we can go straight down, and that gives us as little footprint coming up this direction as possible, because before it basically went straight parallel to the tank. So let's go over this real quick so everybody knows exactly what you need. You need 2 of these. I'll have the size of this right here because I can't remember off the top of my head, and I'm trying to get this video done because this project has taken a lot longer than what I wanted it to take. So you'll want 2 of these, 1 for each side on this side. And then right here, this piece, I cut about, in fact, I think you can see the scarring right there. You can see where I started to cut. So you'll want to cut about 1/4 inch off of this. And that exposes enough of this brass to be able to use as a male-to-male fitting. We'll put those hose clamps here, here, and 1 right there. I did cut this down. I took 2 ribs off of it, still 2 on here. And what that'll allow me to do is put 1 at the very bottom, and it keeps the hose from going too far up before it turns down. I really can't seem to tell how much space I've got in here, so I'm just trying to keep it low profile. So that's how this side goes on. Now here's the other side. The nipple broke off on this, and I had damaged the tubing. So that's why you see it in such a small piece here. What I'm gonna be doing is cutting this off. I would have tried to reuse this, but there's chunks of plastic in there and I just can't seem to get them out. So I'm gonna take this right here. I'm gonna put the hose on it. And then this side right here will have a clamp, and then it will go to this on the other side. So like that. And then on this side of it, because I do need this length here, I'll cut off another piece of this, probably 1 inch or so, and that's how I'll connect this back to the rest of the hoses. So hopefully you don't run into this issue here. This one here, that's all you need to do. So you can actually fix this with 2 of these fittings and a little bit of this hose. That's all you need. Well, and then a step-up drill bit and some probably gasket maker or something else, silicone, whatever you want to use. Make sure that that's not actually leaking, that this is completely tight. So I'm happy that even though I broke this, that I'm actually putting it back together probably more sturdy than it was, and that this didn't end up costing me the entire tank. Sounds like, based on my rough math, that you're a couple bucks a piece for this. And then I can't remember how much this hose was. I thought because it's a fuel hose that it's a little bit more expensive, but you should probably be able to do this project for around 20 bucks or so. All right, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully this video wasn't all over the place. It's been like 3 weeks doing this project, and mostly because we had the holidays and New Year's, and I had to have a second set of hands to pull the one out of this and then put the new one in. And so I had to wait to get some help because I definitely couldn't do this by myself. When you're pulling an engine, we talked about in previous videos, when you're pulling an engine out, it's nice to have a second set of hands, but it's not like absolutely necessary. I would not have done this by myself. So between all of that and trying to make sure that everything fits up like it should, that's what's taken me so long. If you had a buddy with you and you just knocked it out, you could do it in a single day. I just was taking my time with it, and a lot of what was going on was the fuel tanks, and we talked about that. So we went from the solid fuel tank, which is the low emissions one, I think, to make sure that we've got the M3 fuel pump and that it's replaceable. So if your fuel pump goes bad, you could just replace the fuel pump instead of the whole tank. We also moved over the charcoal canister. So all that's been done. It's been a whole bunch of crazy videos. In fact, I'm not sure what clips go to what videos quite just yet. So hopefully this one's not too choppy, but there's my experience doing the rear end. Everything fit absolutely perfect. The bolts are the same back and forth. The cars are the exact same on the bottom, back and forth between the two. It's been absolutely awesome. The only thing that I changed on this car is I put in the non-M wheel speed sensors because the plug was a little bit different. I'm hoping that that's okay. I didn't see that there was actually any difference in the wheel speed sensor area on the actual mechanical side of it. So I think we'll be okay there. I'll report back if there's something that went wrong there, but that was really the only thing that I changed. I'm gonna be moving the brakes over, not because I think the M3 brakes are any better in the rear, but they are the M3 brakes, so I wanna pull them over. And that way, if you do brakes, you know that you're just buying brakes and rotors for an M3. I don't have to worry about pads in the back or anything like that being different, even though I don't think they are. They don't look like they are, but I'm not gonna take in that chance. So we're just gonna replace all of the M3 stuff over into this. I do have new pads and rotors for the rear, and the pads and rotors in the front of the M3 had been done before we bought the car, actually relatively recently. So we're gonna be leaving those because they look to be in really good condition, and they are the slotted and drilled rotors, so they're a little bit nicer than just the stock ones. So stay tuned, lots of content to come. We still have to put in the engine and the transmission. That should be going in soon. The whole entire interior, the computer system tuning this. There's just a ton of stuff coming up. Stay tuned. If you want to see our videos a lot sooner, you can check out our Patreon link. Just $1 a month gets you early ad-free access of our content. Also check out our Instagram if you are interested in some Tenza Motorsports shirts, jackets, or other stickers. Thanks again so much for watching. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down in the comment section below. Share this video with all your other BMW enthusiast friends, and we will see everybody in the next video.